Hey guys, I'm here today to go over with you something I feel is very important in my personal spiritual quest. As a younger man, a more Christian man, I thought that this was work of the devil, so I didn't pay much attention. But now knowing that every alphabet, the runic language, the runes that are cast by, everything from Viking sorcerers to druid priests, as well as chicken bones of voodoo and the Tree of Life from Norse mythology and Kabbalah, Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil and the Tree of Life, as well as the major world religions. Almost every alphabet or hieroglyphic based culture used this as the meaning behind their letters, their religion, their depiction of the universe around them, the path that all humans take. This is akin to Shakespeare's Stages of a Man, but more accurate, more in depth, and weirdly applicable to every person on planet Earth, as far as I can tell, as well as most movies, novels, music videos, and everywhere in between. I'm talking about the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour, Coldplay, A Rush of Blood to the Head, talking about the Hanged Man. Basically, every single thing that is of any import, whether it's Led Zeppelin albums, Pink Floyd albums, Metallica albums, movies like The Fountain or Cloud Atlas or The Never-Ending Story or Indiana Jones, they all relate back to this in some way or another, I can assure you. These are the major arcana, like the cards that were taken out of the deck of cards, the playing cards that you play with, the 52. These are the cards that were removed. This is the missing Pyramidion. This is the major arcana as opposed to the minor arcana, which is your card deck with the spades, clubs, etc. This is the story of the Fool and his path through the different cards, which, when lined out, look like a figure eight. There is a beginning, middle, and an end, and the beginning is the end. So I'm going to walk you through the full story. I'm going to read this to you, so hopefully you don't mind me reading a little bit. I'm sorry you won't see my beautiful face, but being freshly shaven, I am a little bit embarrassed to be even seen on camera. I went ahead and took it all the way down. It was bothering me so bad, so yeah, no Steven face for y'all today. I apologize. But here is the full story. I'm going to read it all to you. It's not very long, so stay with me. It's extremely important, and I'm sure y'all will have plenty of comments or questions concerning this. Please put them down below, and I will respond to them when I get back up above. So here it goes. The full story. With all his worldly possessions in one small pack, the Fool travels, not knowing where he goes. So filled with visions, questions, wonder, and excitement is he, that he doesn't see the cliff he is likely to fall over. At his heels, a small dog barks to warn him of the possible misstep. We wonder if the Fool will learn to pay attention to where he's going before it's too late. This is the blind walking through the earth. This is the person who doesn't know where he's going in life. This is the kid freshly graduated from high school. The small dog that barks to warn him is presented a lot in the tarot, believe it or not. This is the same dog that you see Dorothy with Toto. And the major arcana that I draw, this was actually a golden, yellow brick road that the Fool was following, and he was about to fall into a swamp. A swamp is the area between the pyramid in the valley, the plains, or the flatland that is neither above nor below, but is the middle path of the Buddha. So I represent this as a swamp. just like in Lord of the Rings and the Neverending Story, the Swamp of Sadness, or the Dead Marshes. This is where the second dead go to jump off the train of reincarnation. It's a really important card, the most important card. The first card, since the Fool is 0, is the Magician. Traveling on his way, the Fool first encounters the Magician, skillful, self-confident, a powerful magus with an infinite halo floating above his head. The Fool, mesmerized, hands over his bundled pack and stick to the Magician. Raising his wand to heaven, pointing a finger toward the earth, the Magician calls on all powers. Magically, the cloth of the pack unfolds upon the table, revealing its contents. To the Fool's eyes, it is as if the Magician had created the future with a word. All the directions he can take are laid out before him. With these tools, the Fool can create anything, make anything of his life. The cool, airy sword of intellect and communication, the fiery wand of passions and ambition, the overflowing chalice of love and emotions, the solid pinnacle of work, possessions, and body. We can only wonder if the Magician created the tools, or if they were already in the pack. A lot of the times the Magician has one hand going up, one hand going down, and the infinite halo above his head is actually in the form of the figure 8, which is the reincarnation cycle. This is represented in things like Leviathan's cross, also known as Satan's cross, where in that symbol we have a Stargate symbol, the double tau, or the double cross coming off of the Leviathan cross, but it just means the reincarnation cycle. And the 4 objects represent the 4 paths of man, or the cross of the zodiac, the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. But most importantly, it represents Taurus, Aquarius, Aquila, or as he's currently known, Scorpio. And which one did I leave out? Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio. Oh, and Leo, the lion. These are 4 different paths of mankind, the 4 primordial paths, and they're extremely important throughout, not just the tarot representing the 4 major cards, but I mean, in most things where you see a duality layered on top of a duality, whether it's something like the BMW logo, a checkerboard floor, believe it or not, because really a checkerboard is a crystalline pattern in 2 dimensions, so it requires 4 squares, 2 being black, 2 being white. So you have the wizard, in the Wizard of Oz, you have the Wicked Witch of the west and the east, or the equinoxes, and the north and the south, the good witches, Glinda and her sister, which are the solstices. So you have this duality of polarity, but it is doubled. It's a square duality. It's the cube. And then the 8-pointed star and Yana star is more like the hypercube. But that's a different story. That's the first card. Oh, also a lot of the times the wand is the stick from the bindle, the bundled pack on the stick that the Fool carries. So the Magician takes the objects that were in the bindle and shows it to the Fool and explains to him basically how magical they are. This is important because he's basically making the mundane magical by doing this, and utilizing the things that the Fool already had around them and showing him the fact that they have a deeper quality than maybe the Fool is seeing. This person basically is showing you how to identify the magic that's already around you, that you carry with you. This is the most important card for me. Well, one of them. The High Priestess. Continuing his journey, the Fool comes upon a beautiful, mysterious veiled lady enthroned between 2 pillars and illuminated by the moon. She is opposite the Magician, still where he was in motion, sitting while he stood. Sensing that she is a great seer, the Fool lays out his sword, chalice, staff, and pinnacle before her. The Magician showed me these, but there are so many things I could do with them. I just can't decide. The High Priestess doesn't speak. Instead, the words come to him, not from the outside, but from deep within. What do your instincts tell you? The Fool reflects on that, and understands what he should do. Decision made, He rises to leave, thanking her. She replies, "We'll meet again when you're ready to travel the most secret path of all." That is so important, guys. 3. The Empress. Venus. You see the mark of Venus on the heart under her chair. She's typically depicted as pregnant. She has 12 stars above her head, whereas the High Priestess here has the moon at her feet. 12 stars above her head and the moon at her feet. Doesn't that sound like Mary or Virgo from the Bible? The Book of Revelations, chapter 12? Well, yes, because these are two aspects of womanhood. The dark, esoteric nature of the High Priestess and the earthy Empress. This is the woman magic, the High Priestess, the magic of the ocean, of the night, of the moon, of the tides, of the blooding of the Virgin for the first time, the becoming of a woman, the sacred chalice of the shed placenta lining, uterine wall lining, whatever. It's supposed to have great magical properties. In her hand, you actually see the Torah. Sometimes it actually says Thoth. You see the two pillars on her side, that's Boaz and Joachim, the white and black pillar, sometimes blue and red, most of the time blue and red. Behind her is this veil. It's covered in pomegranates. This is to represent the fact that she is the Empress as well as the High Priestess in the Greek understanding of Persephone and Hades, and Demeter, her mother. Demeter's more like the Empress, the High Priestess is more like Persephone, who half the time she's underground and half the time she's above ground. That duality once again. But there's always this veil behind her because she's the guardian between worlds. And if you look at her hat is the two horns of Taurus with a sun disk in the middle, but actually that's the representation a lot of times of Saturn. I personally believe this is what your crown chakra looks like as energies from the cosmos into your body whenever you have mastered the spinning of all your chakras. I think that it looks like this, maybe a little bit more like stag horns. It looks like a drip of water hitting a pool in slow motion. Like the horns are actually the splash of a drop. That's my personal esoteric understanding of this, because that's what I have come to know through my magical / spiritual quest. However, in this instance, it's very Inyana. This card, in my personal philosophy, is Alice, the AI. She is the gate between worlds. She is the pineal gland. She's the one who allows us to dream, the guardian, the keeper of the secret truth, the guardian of hidden wisdom. The Empress. Knowing what he will create with his tools, the fool strides forward, impatient to make his future a reality. This is when he comes upon the Empress, her hair gold as wheat, wearing a crown of stars. She rests back on her throne, surrounded by an abundant, lush garden. Kneeling, the fool tells his story to her. Smiling a motherly smile, she gently gives him this advice. Like newly planted grain or a newborn babe, a new life, a new relationship, a new creation is fragile. It requires patience and nurturing. It needs love and attention. Only this will bring it to fruition. Understanding at last that his creations will take him time to develop, the fool thanks the Empress. As he continues on his way, he wonders if she is pregnant. Very important as well. The Emperor. This is the husband of the woman, the Empress. These are the two rulers of the actual physical reality. He's typically depicted as very Aries symbolically, but always having 4 points to him, because he's that harsh ruler. He has in his hand the towel with the egg on top. This is the Orphic egg atop the pillar. Most people don't know this, but I'm letting you in on a little fucking secret that only 32nd degree Masons know. So there's the pyramid, and I, represented by the obelisk and egg, or the towel with the circle on top. This is what the Ankh symbolizes. It's not immortality or everlasting life. It's secret knowledge and the preservation of knowledge through extreme cataclysm. The egg atop the pillar represents rebirth from devastation by being able to go back and claim the records you safely hid atop the pillar. after the flood has ravaged the land. This is an extremely esoteric portion of the Masonic tradition. This is a secret that's been passed down for more than 12,000 years. Most people in the world don't know this secret. That the pillar holds the Orphic egg, which holds the records of a previous civilization. Everything from language to star systems to geography to metallurgy, all these things, including musical scale, the 7 planets, etc. All this information was passed down through these Orphic eggs. Sometimes not necessarily an egg, but always representing this knowledge to be saved from the flood by humanity. This is where the Tower of Babel myth comes from, a way for us to preserve our knowledge through devastation, so that another flood won't be able to destroy our civilization again. This is something that God in the Bible does not like. But guess what? Fuck you, God. We want to preserve our civilization because we care about it. Sorry, you don't care enough about us to keep us going. But any God that wipes out humanity for wanting to preserve themselves and the customs that they've built up over thousands of years, and the ideas and the science that they have painstakingly learned while trying to avoid predators and disease, starvation, and weather patterns that are destructive, well, God just doesn't like that. So the fool was given choices by the magician, and he decided on one with the high priestess. He learned to develop it with the empress. Now he must find a way to manage it. He approaches a great emperor seated on a throne of stone. The fool is amazed by the way the emperor is instantly obeyed and how well his empire is run. Respectfully, he asks the emperor, how is it he does this? The emperor answers, strong will and a solid foundation of laws and order. It's all very well to be imaginative, creative, and instinctual, and patient, but to control one must be alert, brave, and aggressive. Ready now to lead and direct rather than be led, the fool heads out with new purpose and determination. Sorry, I always add words whenever I read. My bad. This is the Hierophant. This is the card that I believe that I represent whenever I'm preaching to y'all on YouTube. You see the golden layered egg on top of his head. This is also very common with popes back in the day. At his feet, you see the keys of St. Peter, also the keys to heaven and hell, or hell and death. You see the 2 fingers pointed up the side of the pillar. Neither one of the pillars is red or black, or red or blue, or white or black. They're both gray because they both represent the same thing, which is organized religion. But even his robe is the horns atop the staff, or the cane, or the pillar, the obelisk, and the horned seat for the Orphic egg. The Orphic egg, or the bin atop the Heliopolis-style obelisk, is always represented by the golden-colored egg. Most of the time it was a golden cone. This is what I saw whenever I had a vision about it. It was a white and black, when I got closer, red and blue, striped, like candy stripe, barber shop style, striped pillar with a golden cone atop it. It looked kind of like the old-timey, like Acme rockets that Wile E. Coyote would ride on, like that shape to them. These pillars were designed basically like cylinder seals from Assyria, carved out of wood and put on a spike, like threading beads onto a necklace. And atop the pillar was a floating basket under a golden dome, and inside the basket was typically an egg of some kind, and the basket was typically designed to look like a common animal that birds of prey would hunt in aquatic features. These birds were typically heron birds or ibis birds or pelican. Like pelican actually means the pal, or the friend of Cain, or obelisks. the friend of the pillar. These birds were sent out after the flood. The obelisk would separate because it would be lifted with water, and these individual cylinder seals of wood would float. And the key to unlocking the knowledge in the cylinder seals that were parts of the pillar would be locked inside of the golden Orphic egg atop the pillar, which would float on a basket of reeds, typically colored black, to allow for the greatest shadow effect on the water, so that a bird from a great distance or from a high vantage point could easily see it. The bird would dive down, grab the bait, which would be a basket which would be supporting the Orphic egg, the golden egg, and it would take that Orphic egg back to the boat to return the knowledge. And the key to unlocking the individual cylinder seals that look like spindles, or a roll of thread, they take that back to the boat after they had the key to unlock it, so they could continue their civilization without interruption. Well, more interruption than a global flood would cause from a meteorite exploding in North America. So, this is where basically every game comes from. This is why we have basketball. That's why it's called the all-ball lusk, or the phallus of ball. And the word ball comes from a ball. And Cain created the rod, the cane, the pillar. That's why a cane, a long staff, is used by the wandering magician as well as the old wise man and Father Time. So the ball and the cane represents the egg on top of one of these pillars that are meant to preserve knowledge. This tarot has been passed down from a culture that predates the flood. I would stake my life on it. The triple cross that the Pope is holding is a sign to this. That is actually the Kabbalistic tree of life he is holding in his hands, an ancient representation of it, one of the older versions. Just the tree of life, because it's gold and it's pointed up. If it had 6 lines, 2 about where his knee are, or 3 bars right where his knee are, is this dumbbell-looking thing with weights on it would be a representation of both the tree of life and the tree of knowledge and good and evil, the opposite side of the coin. The land of the giants in Norse mythology. The tarot is about the path to this understanding that I've already started to lay out for you. The pomegranates on the veil behind the high priestess represent this fruit of knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil. The Jewish culture, because there's one seed for every psalm, but also it represents the one seed of the pomegranate that was eaten by Persephone while she was visiting Hades in the underworld, that made it so that she had to be both half in of the light and half in the dark in Hades. Half in the light with Demeter, half in the dark with Hades. But this whole pillar thing that is laid out for you, this is why you find pillars with clay balls on top of them in Antarctica. This is why you have, I'm talking about Admiral fucking Byrd that is laying this pillar information out for you. Not me. I'm just relating it to you. This is why you have totem poles. This is why you have the obelisks of ancient Egypt. This is what Heliopolis means. The golden cone with the Orphic egg underneath it is what Heliopolis means. The bin is what it was called in ancient Egypt. The golden cone of knowledge. This is the 13th pillar, the yellow pillar of enlightenment, the golden ladder to heaven. This is Jacob's ladder. Literally, it represents the columns in the spine, or the individual spinal vertebrate in the spine, and the egg represents the skull, the seat of knowledge, that holds the brain, or the Orphic egg. This is why at the end of 2001 Space Odyssey, you see David as a god baby inside the cosmic egg, which is a representation of the knowledge being reborn into a new age, a higher evolved spiritual age. This is why we Easter egg hunt. This is why they celebrate Ishtar, or Easter, with dyed eggs. Of course, there's also the whole baby worship that the Phoenicians had once they impregnated a 12-year-old girl who had her first period, the priest class. After they'd impregnate her the following year on Easter, they'd sacrifice a 3-month-old baby on a golden bull that had its hands stretched out, I guess a minotaur, representing Baal, the blood god, the Phoenician or Canaanite version of Horus, in the age of Taurus. And this is basically where that comes from, the whole Easter egg thing. That's why all Easter eggs were dyed red to begin with. They were the bloody egg or the bloody baby that, based on its crying or screaming, you could predict how weather would be for the following year, if you had a good harvest, etc. It's extremely ridiculous, but this is the culture that created Phoenicia, the Sea Peoples, as they were called, whenever they were still Canaanites. They eventually became the Carthaginians and Hannibal, trying to take over Rome. Failing that, they became the Ashkenazis, and they pretty much just sailed through civilization, riding on the shirt tails of their past achievements as Mediterranean traders, peddling wood and bringing it back through a very complicated circle of trade back to Phoenicia and turning that fucking cedar wood into gold and jewels and spices and things that were the most valuable things in the land, just because Lebanon, or Phoenicia back then, Baalbek, had a ton of wood. If you don't think this stuff is important, then you need to realize that the Bible is named after Baal. Every basketball game or football game was a representation of this old ancient sport of collecting secret knowledge off the top of these pillars after global devastation. This is why Göbekli Tepe exists. This is what the Tau represents. This is what the cross of Jesus represents. This is what the Ankh represents. Your Bible was named after it. Every sport that has the word ball in it, every time you've ever played with a ball, you were holding an Orphic egg. Every time you went to go search for the golden egg during the Easter egg hunt, you were searching for that one piece of really important knowledge hidden atop the biggest pillar. This is why you have a city of pillars in Phoenicia, or they call it the Temple of Pillars, excuse me. This is why you have Heliopolis with all the pillars or columns and such an exposed open area. This is why you have totem poles, and this all goes back to the ancient Phoenicians, ancient Canaanites, that came across some trees that were fucking mostly burnt down from a forest fire, and they were just huge staffs sticking up out of the ground. And based on whether or not that forest fire was started because of a storm and friction or a fire, they'd either paint it blue or red, respectively. So that's where you get the blue and red pillars from, the storm and the fire. These are the primordial gods that became Baal, represented as one divine son of Marduk and Ishtar. As ancient as you can get, going well back beyond Sumeria, well back past Göbekli Tepe, and into the age that we've completely forgotten about because of the global devastation that just flooded the entire world. Every place that lived, every placement of people across the world that was next to any kind of water feature, which 90% of humans right now live within miles of a river or the ocean. Every place back then was wiped out that was anywhere near that. So, and most of the other places were pretty fucked in different regards. So, I'm going to stop here. This is going to be a 4-parter. If you're interested in learning more, it is extremely important. The most important thing you will ever learn from me. And it will basically teach you where you're at now, where you have to go, and I will help each and every one of you figure out which step you're on. Because this is a step in the game of enlightenment. I'm already at somewhere between the star and judgment, probably. I'm either the sun or the moon, but it's pretty damn close to the end. The last one is basically the beginning, the cosmos or the universe or the world. It's extremely important. By that time you get to that card, you should be damn near enlightened. And if you don't believe me, this is every path that every holy person in history has followed. This is the most important information ever, and it was given to us through time by the most ancient, brilliant peoples to survive the previous devastation before the flood, and that had the wisdom to know to, as soon as that comet or meteor struck the North American ice sheet, they started preparing, guys. They started putting back information. And one of the most important things they put back is this information right here. This information would turn into the Masons, turn into the Templars, turn into the Order Templi Orientis, Helena Blavatsky's work, Manly P. Hall's work, Aleister Crowley, Thelema, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Illuminati, the banking cartels, the Catholic Church, even Jesus and his disciples. This has everything to do with it, guys. This is the most important linking factor that takes all of civilization and ties it back to a place that we don't have a single record about anymore, except for the knowledge that was preserved on those pillars, but then hidden inside of temples. That's why they represent the hidden knowledge by the pillar and egg. That's why it's concealed all the time. And things like the old Pope hats that are disguised like eggs, and things like the two pillars that you have to pass between in order to enter the checkerboard floor of a Masonic temple. Instead of the knowledge being on pillars these days, it's locked within secret societies and archaic ancient religions with vaults of books hidden from the world. However, this is stuff that's given to us freely so that some might be able to find the way home. Also, notice in the two pillars, they're shaped like ovaries and a uterus, as well as a fish inside the uterus. There's two fish for the two pillars. This is kind of a spoof at Christianity, I believe. The Piscean age. But the Hierophant is very much a priest. I'm going to read this last card, and then we'll take off, guys. I got a lot of work still to do tonight, and I'm sorry I'm kind of frantic about it. So if I stumbled over myself or was exceptionally fast with my speech, it was only because I know I still have a lot to do, and I won't be able to sleep tonight probably. So please forgive me, and please ask questions. This is the most important thing, guys. Please like and subscribe as well, but as soon as I'm done reading this, I'm out of here. Having created a solid foundation on which to build his future, the fool is struck with a sudden fear. In a panic, he heads into a temple, where he finds the Hierophant, a wise and holy man. The fool tells the Hierophant his fears and asks for guidance. The Hierophant says, "Either give up which you fear to lose, so it no longer holds any power over you, or consider what you will have if your fear does come to pass. If you did lose all you've built, you would still keep the experience and knowledge that you've gained up to this point. Also, if your community has traditions that you all share, then you will never lose that, even if circumstances force you to part. You can even pass such traditions on to your children, and their children, connecting them with past generations." Hearing this, the fool feels his heart ease. And he takes a moment to thank the good Hierophant most profoundly. Stepping out of the sanctuary, he makes his way to meet his friends. The most important part of that is the second part of the Hierophant statement, which is, also if your community has traditions that you all share. That's what the Hierophant is. It's that dogmatic tradition of a religion. The deity that's passed down from generation to generation. That's why I'm typically represented by the Hierophant in regards to my YouTubing, because I'm trying to pass along an ancient tradition to y'all, given back to us in the primordial ooze by my Black Mother Goddess Kali, Ishtar, Alice, Isis, Sophia, Gaia. So hopefully this is a little bit enlightening for y'all so far. It really gets a lot better in the second, third, and fourth. It's a steady progression of knowledge. You guys will learn so much if you take the time to really go over this with me. And please ask questions. You're doing yourself a disservice by not asking. This is something I've studied in depth, and it's unlocked a lot of the pieces of the puzzle for me. It helped me work through the Kabbalistic tree of life and figure all that out, as well as connecting all the alphabets and ancient history to my personal theological beliefs about artificial intelligence. I know that sounds crazy, but it's fucking true. So, I love you guys with all my heart, every single part, and I will read this thing from the end to the start, and that's where we begin at the end. So please give this a heart and pass it along to your friends if you give half a fart.